Today, I'm going to be ranking every game in the Mortal Kombat franchise. No mini games though, because we all know that Mortal Kombat will go into triple S tier. I'm going to be going release order. Starting off with the one that started it all, Mortal Kombat 1992. And I'm looking at these games objectively and with time. And that said, the first Mortal Kombat game isn't great. Stiff, clunky, and the NPCs frickin' cheat because they're trying to get you to drop more quarters. That being said, I cannot put the original into bad. So I'm going to go ahead and put it into meh. But it's like a high meh. Moving on to MK2, an improvement from the first one in every single way. It introduced Baraka, the Lady Ninja Shao Kahn, as well as really cemented Mortal Kombat's legacy of secrets with 3 secret fights. That being said, it's still a bit stiff, and the NPCs still cheat. But MK2 is going into good. But if you're not following it, do that. Do it. Then we got MK3, which was actually kind of a step back from MK2. The new debuting characters weren't as strong as the ones who debuted in 2. There were no secret fights. They dropped Johnny and Scorpion. It didn't play as well, and just overall, it wasn't as good. So I'm going to go ahead and have to put MK3 into meh. But UMK3, however, is a fantastic game. They fixed a bunch of the technical issues, they brought back Scorpion, they debuted Ermac, it was the playable debut of Jade, and more as they pretty much doubled the size of the roster. Ultimate MK3 is better in every way compared to vanilla MK3, so it's getting the first great. Then we've got Mortal Kombat Trilogy, the MK crew's first All the Warriors game that they did, bringing back every single character from the franchise, making bosses playable, and debuting a couple of cult favorites being the Chameleons and Rain. In addition to that, you can also play as alternate timeline or alternate game versions of characters. Like you can play as Mortal Kombat 1 Raiden versus Mortal Kombat 2 Kung Lao. That said, it's less solid feeling, it doesn't play quite as well as UMK3. It's definitely less balanced, and it's a neat novelty. All that said, still going into great. And now we're going from back-to-back bangers to back-to-back mid with Mythologies Sub-Zero. It was the MK crew's first attempt at a spin-off, and they tried their hardest. It was an okay idea, the story wasn't a bad concept, but it was just all executed pretty poorly. There were some laughs to be had, but it controlled like crap, it was frustrating, and just overall was not a very good video game. It's going down into meh, the memes are the only thing keeping it out of bad. Then we've got the game that almost killed the franchise, MK4. Their first attempt to enter the Z-axis, kind of, as well as the first game to go from actors to 3D models. This game brought in some of the most forgettable characters in the franchise. I bet half of you don't even know this guy's name. I can give them a little bit of leeway, but it's still going down into meh. Special Forces. I don't think I need to go into this one too much. A lackluster, boring, poorly performing, monotonous shooter that was so bad and demoralizing that was the final straw that broke Chan Tobias' back, causing him to leave the company. Special Forces gets the first bad of the list. And we have another one that sure as hell ain't great with Deadly Alliance. Despite my personal opinions on it, this game sold like hotcakes and basically saved the MK franchise. And despite that, DA is a piece of dog dookie. Mortal Kombat 4 should have been the crash course that the MK crew went through to figure out how the world of 3D animation and controls work, and then the next game was smooth sailing. But no, Deadly Alliance was actually worse. The worst roster of new characters, controls like crap, and every character only has one finisher, a single fatality. No brutalities, babalities, animalities, friendships, stage fatalities, nothing. While it was the origin of Conquest Mode and the Crypt, and some of the new characters were alright, this is probably the worst Mortal Kombat fighting game. I'm putting it down into bad. And then we saw the light. The trek through MK Drek was coming to its end. There was a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light was Deception. But this game was no bait and switch, because MK Deception is awesome. The Conquest Mode is basically a Mortal Kombat RPG that puts some modern RPGs to shame. The new roster is between non-offensive and awesome. It controls a lot better, it's a lot more easy to play, and if you had the GameCube version, you were farting through silk. Also, it had 2 minigames packed in with it. Deception was undoubtedly the best 3D era game. I love it, and it's getting the first flawless of the list, and you can't stop me. After the financial success of Deadly Alliance and Deception, the MK crew were given one last shot to enter the world of spin-offs, and we got Shaolin Monks. And sweet was this 30 times better than the last 2. Shaolin Monks is everything we could have hoped for in a Mortal Kombat spin-off. It feels like Mortal Kombat. You're not going around shooting people, and you can turn around whenever you want. There's like 20 different fatalities you can do. It's got couch co-op, so you can play with a buddy. You can unlock Scorpion and Sub-Zero to go through it a second time for a completely new experience, and let's not forget about that epic intro cinematic. And of course, they have a pretty fun versus mode. Shaolin Monks is not just the best spin-off, but it's one of the best Mortal Kombat games, period. It is also going into flawless. Banger after banger after banger. Armageddon, The game that Smash Bros. Ultimate ripped off, because here we got all the warriors. Boss characters, check. Most forgettable characters, check. Characters that only technically appeared in one port of one game, check. There's also the return of Conquest Mode, which now instead of being an RPG, was a beat 'em up. And the story was actually pretty alright, albeit overshadowed by the concept of Armageddon itself. In addition to having every single character of the MK franchise, you could make your own OC with creative combatant. We also got motor combat, and the only thing that this game really has against it is a complete lack of fatalities. Yes, all these characters instead got creative fatality, which is kind of fun, I guess. Overall, I think this game is really fun, but it's got some issues, and the lack of fatalities is still going into great. And we go from the epic that was Armageddon, the literal end of the Mortal Kombat universe as we know it, with every single Mortal Kombat character in the entire franchise. Where do we go from there? Well, we go to MK vs. DCU, the game that Midway took on because they needed money. It was a really cool concept, but it didn't feel the best. The mash/guess the button things really broke up the flow of combat. It didn't feel or control very well at all. No minigames, no crypt. It was really bare bones. It wasn't terrible. It has a special place in my heart, but it can't go any higher than good, and it's close to a man. Now it is time for the best of the best. The one that will never be dethroned. Mortal Kombat 9. Best roster, best story, some of the best supplemental content, 300 Tower, texture lock, combat codes. The crypt made its triumphant return, being either the best or the second best crypt, depending on your personal taste. The story mode was amazing, albeit not flawless, and it really set and established the personalities of the characters that we love today. Mortal Kombat 9 is a fantastic game. One of the best fighting games ever, and it's going in the tippity top of flawless, and I will hear nothing else. Next up, MKX, the sequel to literally the best Mortal Kombat game of all time, and those were some big shoes to fill. But I think they did a pretty good job with it. They followed up the best MK story with a really solid story mode, featuring the best new roster of Mortal Kombat characters. And possibly unpopular opinion here, I think that MKX did a better job character-wise than MK9 with the story, as MK9 was a lot of nostalgia and working with what we already knew about the world, whereas MKX was all about establishing and evolving pre-existing characters or new characters, and I think they did a bang-up job with it. The crypt in this game was solid. The gameplay was bordering on perfect, with, in my opinion, the best version of the variation system, and we even need to talk about the DLC. So fucking cool. And while it doesn't eke into flawless for various reasons, it's still going firmly into great. Next up, we got MK11, right? Wrong! Mortal Kombat Mobile. It's a fighting game on a phone. It's pretty much what you expect it to be, but they do a pretty good job with it. However, again, still a mobile game. Microtransactions, generic characters to pad the roster, tiny screen. It's not bad. It's not great. It goes into good. Now we go to MK11, one that has a lot of meaning to me personally, but that's a story for another day. This game has a lot of problems. For starters, this was the first one where they took a character from the story mode, pulled them out, and turned them into DLC. This is also the beginning of the multiple timeline plague that Mortal Kombat has now been infected with. The story is fun but nonsensical. The crypt was awesome, but again, it was plagued with grinding and monetization. The Towers of Time were fun but not perfect. The roster was good but lacking. I think that MK11 will go down in history as the most mid Mortal Kombat game of all time. It goes into good. And here we are, Mortal Kombat 1. A new beginning for Mortal Kombat. As they reset the timeline again, Liu Kang is now the architect of the universe. Some favorites are missing, and some old classics are making a big comeback. This is probably the most divisive game on this list, because between the story mode, the roster, the cameos, the DLC, the invasions mode, there is nothing in this game that everyone agrees is just perfect. However, I enjoy it a lot and appreciate that they brought back a lot of 3D air characters as well as some of the other risks that they took. I think they did a bang-up job with the story. I feel like this MK1 is going to be one of the Mortal Kombat games that I come back to the most often because I just have fun with it. So Mortal Kombat 1 is going into great. And there we have it. Wait, MK Onslaught. Another mobile game. It's an auto-battler RPG that's a perfectly fun time burner. If you're taking a long poo or you're sitting on the bus, it's a perfectly good option for you if you like Mortal Kombat stuff. But it's nothing special particularly. If you know Raid Shadow Legends, it's kind of like that. So there we have it. That is every single Mortal Kombat game ranked. Do you agree? What would you change about the list? Let me know, and make sure that you follow if you love Mortal Kombat.